Hello, I'm Hugo. I'm the game designer and level designer on Outshine.
I'm Leander. I'm a gameplay programmer and general programmer on Outshine.
Outshine is a typing game, fast-paced and arcade-oriented, when you have to score as much as possible during the levels. So the last typing game that Fishing Cactus made was Nanotale, and a lot of players liked the fact that we had an arena mode, which is basically an arcade mode when you have to, where you have to type as fast as possible. So we decided to create an entire game based on this pace, basically. So something that is really fast-paced, score-oriented.
There were quite a lot of challenges making Outshine. One of them, for example, was trying to still convey a story while having an arcade game and a typing game, because it's hard. Everything needs to be fast-paced. It's hard to give words to the enemies and still have everything working correctly. But our designer, Hugo, of course, fixed this partially by introducing a lot of the story through static elements, and which we use also to give the player a bit of rest time, because you cannot type at high speeds at all time.
Mm-hmm.
And generally the words of the enemies, they are random, but they all relate to the thematic of the thing we're trying to tell. There are, of course, some other difficulties as well, which is, as you see in Outshine, you have to dodge and type at the same time. Normally, in, for example, our previous games, Nanotale and Epistory, you were either typing or you were interacting with the world. In Outshine, you're doing both at the same time, which is not a natural movement you do, trying to reach all parts of the keyboard. But I do think it came out quite nicely to really feel inside the game at all times without having to go back from one part of the game to the typing part. You're always typing and you're always moving forward. There's a big difference between the enemies in Nanotale and, for example, Outshine that we have currently. Nanotale generally has more static enemies, or more general, like they go after you, but it's kind of, I wouldn't say basic, because it's nice. But in Outshine, we have a lot of different attack patterns, because generally in arcade games or in shoot 'em up games, the enemies have attack patterns, which we try to recreate as much as possible. Yeah. So you have the interaction with the enemies a bit more, that you have to anticipate on what they're going to do, while you're also trying to read the words correctly, to be able to type everything and not die in the meantime.
So in Outshine, the basic level pattern is the avatar start to run. You have to avoid different waves of enemies that are composed of different enemies depending on the difficulty on which you're playing. And you have to avoid the projectile they are sending to you. You have to destroy a lot of them to gain more points. And a level is divided in 3 sections. At the end of the 2 first sections, you have a door in front of you. So the avatar will stop in front of it, and we'll have to type sentences as fast as possible to destroy the door and to go to the next section. Those sentences are basically the lore of the game, so there is not a lot of story on the game, but we tried as much as possible to bring some narration into the game. So those doors are made for that. And at the end of the last section, you have a mini-boss that consists in a stronger and bigger enemy that have more weak point, more words to type on it, and like the door, you will have to destroy it as fast as possible to gain more points. In Outshine, we also added modifiers that are basically modes that you can activate before playing a level, and those modes can make the game easier or harder, depending on what you prefer, but it will also modify the score that you will gain at the end of the level. if in the hardest difficulty the game is still too easy for some players, they can still add some more difficulty by activating a lot of those modifiers.
We have 5 pre-made difficulty levels, so it's not like Nanotale where the difficulty scales with how fast you actually type. We chose for a more managed difficulty level because we want to have every player play on the same levels, because the difficulty is going to modify how many enemies spawn, how fast they do things. And we wanted to have everyone start from the same playing field, because one of the main focuses with Outshine is leaderboards. We wanted to have as much control over. We wanted to have people looking at the leaderboard and see if, for example, their friends of somebody they knew are on there and if they could beat them or not. And of course, if you want to know how they got that score, they have to play the same difficulty level, which then enables you to basically play from the same starting point. Of course, it will also show if it has modifiers enabled or not, because those obviously will modify the score quite heavily, because some actually do make the game quite hard. But for our players who cannot type that fast, normally everybody should be able to play the game on the lowest difficulty. But even if that's not possible, we do have some modifiers that will help you finish the levels anyways.
The difference between a player that's typing very slow and a typer that's typing very fast is huge. It's like 10 times faster. There's a difference of 10 times between those two extremes. So in a typing game, basically, your fire rate is your typing speed. So imagine, I don't know, a shooter game where you have a spaceship that have a fire rate of 10 times more than another one. It's completely insane. Or a racing game where there's a car that's running at 10 times faster than another one. For the level designer, it will be a pain. So we had kind of the same issue for Outshine, to balance this level design, to balance this difficulty in order to have a game that is playable for a slow typer and a fast typer. I cannot add hundreds of enemies to make the thing really hard, and I cannot just place 2 enemies on the game to make the game easy enough. So it was difficult to balance that.
The size of the core team, we worked a long time with only 3 people. Then of course the artist came on board, because for a prototype you don't really need that much art. So in total for the main development, I would say 5 to 6,
yeah,
something like that. And then of course, because it switches out a bit, some people have some other priorities and stuff as well. That doesn't make any sense.
At the maximum, the team was composed of 6 people.
Yeah, so not a lot. So because we were with a small team, we did not have a lot of people working on it. We decided to go for a minimalistic design choice, and also to tap in a bit more into the arcade style, which has always been a bit more minimalistic geometry based, I would say. Especially because I like geometrical shapes. So we decided to go for sharp edges, that everything is really visible, with bright colors to really show like here are things going on. There it's less important to look at, because you really need to be focused on the gameplay, otherwise you might get some hits from the enemies. We also decided to go for I would say a machinery kind of approach. So everything is like very it moves like futuristic machine.
Robotic
robotic movements.
animations.
One of our bosses, we call it the caterpillar. Some people would say it's organic, but I would say it's not, simply because if you look at the shapes, all of them are very sharp, and it seems quite aggressive, especially with the red colors. And you have a few parts in them, like a caterpillar has, I suppose. But its movement is more organic. Simply because it flows like I don't think a caterpillar flows, but like a snake wiggles around. So there's some inconsistency there with the naming, I suppose. In the arcade game, everything needs to be smooth, and it needs to flow well. Otherwise, it just doesn't look good. So you cannot have a caterpillar that's that's doing the robotic dance moves, I suppose.
During the development of Outshine, we did two kinds of playtests. The first one was deep playtest that I made on one-on-one with a few players in order to have some more feedbacks, that I can see the player play the game and see what's the thing they could be stuck on, or things that are too difficult or too easy for them. And the other kind of playtest was more general one, but with more people, and basically they just had to fill the document that is sent to us. So gameplay-wise, in Outshine, we added another feature that consists of color chain. So this color chain is if instead of destroying everything on screen without any order, you are targeting the enemies that have the same color, you will gain more points. So we wanted to add some more deepness into the gameplay.
More depth.
More depth?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, to more depth into the gameplay. For the very fast typer that will just destroy everything on screen, I wanted them to, instead of just reading and typing the word, thinking about which word am I supposed to type first. Voilà.
So there were quite some technical difficulties in Outshine, because we used the technologies that were quite new and weren't really used before. Personally, we've never used them before, and it was hard to find stuff about them in the beginning. Now it's a bit more documented, but still it's quite hard, at least in my opinion. So Unity recently announced their ECS approach, which we were very interested in. So we took it as a technology that we wanted to try and implement in Outshine. We use it basically for the whole environment. So or the environment in Outshine is completely interactable.
Destructible.
Interactable.
Yeah.
So the particles that the particles that come from enemy destruction or from any kind of destruction can interact with the environment and collide with it and create some interesting interactions. In the beginning, it was far more elaborate than that, but because of time constraints, we had to tone it down a bit. But it's still quite nice to look at your particles flying all over the place and destroying the environment, which in turn gives you even more points. So if you can, that might also be a tricky thing to increase your score. Otherwise, they have their whole new scriptable render pipeline, which we also adopted into the project together with Burst, compiler, and so we went quite experimental. We do think we were able to harness quite a bit of the power, but as for everything, there's a lot of stuff to learn. So if you're interested in that, make sure to
take the time to read the documentation.
Yeah, I would say it like that, but that's not
about those
systems. I don't know, but so it's fine. I said everything basically. So in Outshine, we implemented some accessibility features. Like in our previous games, we have a dyslexic font for dyslexic people out there. We also have a stylized font, which could be if you want your letters to be a bit more fancy than just a normal font. But otherwise, we also have light modes and stuff like that to reduce light flashes or to improve visibility if you're having a hard time discerning words from the background. And other than accessibility features, we also have language options, of course, but currently in the demo we only allow for the English language. But when we move closer to release, and at release, of course, we will have a lot more languages that will be in the game. So look forward to your language being in there. Let's hope. And other than that, I think Hugo wanted to talk something about design.
The biggest challenge we had for the art part was everything that we had to create an arcade feeling on screen, but without putting too much effect, because if it's the case, you cannot see the words on screen. So we had to visually balance the game, so there's not too much thing on the screen, but it's still there's still this arcade feeling that there's things that are being destroyed and exploding everywhere. And you can still see the word on screen. So that was complicated. We made a lot of try.
And to conclude this, we had our biggest challenge actually, which we haven't talked about yet, was having an arcade game. So an arcade game, you need to pay attention and focus on everything at the same time. But in a typing game, you're supposed to focus on one thing, which is the word that you have to type. So there was Hugo had quite some issues in the beginning to be able to have people type and play at the same time, because they need to pay attention to everything. So you cannot look at your keyboard. So for his ease of mind, let's hope everyone is able to learn through this game as well, to be able to focus more on the screen and less on their finger or hand positions on the keyboard, which will, of course, drastically improve your typing speed.
So what am I expecting personally, I don't know about you, Leon, or having the game into the Steam Festival is the player enjoying the game first. I hope they will. And recollecting a lot of feedbacks from them. If they find something too easy, too hard, something that they don't understand, that we can improve. That's for me the objective.
Personally, because I'm expecting something else, like you said, I really would like to see how high people can score, because generally I just like numbers, I suppose. But also, there's going to be some issues in the Steam Fest build. That's something we cannot avoid. But we hope that with every information we get from the people that play the demo, that we can améliorer, like they say in French, improve the state of the game to get a better release when we actually release the full game to the public.
The demo version consists of the tutorial plus the two first levels. And the modifiers?
Yeah, and we also have some of the modifiers in the demo. Of course, in the main game there are a lot more, so look forward to that. We only, like Hugo said before, there's only 2 levels to play, but there are quite some more coming, but not for the demo, of course.
Thank you everyone for watching this video. We hope that you'll have fun by testing the demo.
Also, please do not forget to leave us tons of feedback through our Discord channel, which will be linked below. This will help us to massively improve the game at release. And also, please help us out and wishlist the game on Steam. It will help us a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.